game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.
All right. Welcome back to Buckeye Mike. We are live across all types of platforms. We are discussing tonight in this God knows how long edition, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. And joining with me tonight are I would say, two best representatives of any school that I have ever seen. One, Jaylen and Caleb. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, man.
Doing pretty good. Had work today, but other than that, doing pretty solid.
I'm glad to hear. And I'll be honest with you guys. Like I said when I got in here, I know absolutely nothing about Jacksonville State. And that's why I wanted to talk to you guys, because who else better to talk to than the two most knowledgeable dudes of Jacksonville State?
Man, he's pumping us up.
I was about to say he's putting us on the pedestal here. I know a good bit, but I don't know about most knowledgeable.
So to start us off, what can you tell us? What can you tell us for someone in my position about Jacksonville State? What, because like I said, I'm basically someone who's basically learning about the university. So, what do you got?
Jaylen, you want it or you want me to take it?
I can take it.
I bet.
So Jacksonville State, as far as athletics goes, has a pretty deep and rich history. We have a lot of championships across all of our sports in our D2 days. We have a lot of conference championships in our D1 FCS days. I mean, softball, baseball, basketball, football, you name it, like pretty rich athletic history. And that's part of the reason why we wanted to make the jump. Like, we're ready. I mean, across all of our sports, we had some of the best coaches at the FCS level. And I know they're all more than capable of taking that leap and continuing the push, and just getting us to that next level, because you always want to keep going up. You always want to keep moving, kind of make a name for yourself. And I think this is, like, obviously we've had a couple of big wins. We had Ole Miss a few years back. 2015 we had Auburn on the ropes. And then obviously the infamous FSU Hail Mary. So we're making a name for ourselves. This is just another step in the right direction.
Okay. Now, after doing a quick lookup of the university, it seems to be that Jacksonville State has made the jump to Group of Five with going into the Conference USA.
Yeah, you're wrong.
That's what I thought. So, if either, and you know, any question, either of you guys can take it. You both can touch on it. But what was the process like jumping from FCS to Group of Five?
I can take this one.
Yeah, you got it.
It was kind of funny because 3 years ago we were in the OVC, the Ohio Valley Conference, which is an okay FCS conference, and we went to a different FCS conference 3 years ago, the ASUN, which made a lot more sense for where we play down here in the Southeast. And almost immediately they started looking to jump into the FBS, and it just worked out that Conference USA had like 4 teams go to the American Conference, so they had a bunch of spots open, um, and a lot of the teams are anywhere from Texas to Virginia. So it worked out well. It made most of it made sense geographically. It kind of happened fast, but about half a year after we were doing the ASON, they announced that they got to do it. It was a pretty quick turnaround. But I mean, it's super exciting because getting to go to bowl games be a little bit different than being in FCS playoffs. So
Yeah, I don't know how many times y'all ran into him, but I'm sure it gets boring and annoying. Like, oh my gosh, we made the postseason. We're going to the playoffs. Anybody see our draw? At some point, we're going to run into North Dakota State.
I don't like
those guys.
So much for a good season.
So speaking of North Dakota State, my freshman year, we're both in the marching band. My freshman year, we had an insane team. 2015, we made it all the way to Frisco, and of course, who other than Carson Wentz and the North Dakota State Bison? And I mean, we were rocking that season. And then we get up there. Keep in mind, we're from Alabama. For the people that don't know, Jacksonville, Alabama, not Florida. We're from Alabama. We're used to the balmy weather. We get to Frisco, and it is single digits. So all of us, we're freezing, dying. Their fans are walking around shirtless and in shorts. Like, this is nothing. And then we proceed to just I don't know. Carson Wentz showed up and did what he did, and I haven't liked them or him ever since.
Well, I guess it'll make you guys happy that I basically foresaw the Carson Wentz career that we have. Now, granted, it probably wouldn't be the way it is if he didn't get hurt in the Super Bowl season, but I had always said him and Goff both. They're not going to fit in the NFL. They're total busts, and it was totally overrated for both to go 1 and 2. But so as far as Jacksonville State, yeah. So this is now year 3 under Rich Rod.
year two.
Year 2.
Yep, year 2.
What's it been like at the program under Rich Rod? Because I mean, we've seen Rich Rod's history. Is the fan base like, okay, it's Rich Rod, when's it coming? Like, you were successful at West Virginia, and then you tore West Virginia down. So you go to Michigan. You completely go in there and say everything you knew about Michigan football, yeah, it doesn't exist because it's a stupid way to go about football, and just completely tears down the Michigan program. And yes, I'm a Buckeye fan, and I was happy when he got hired and the process that he took Michigan through. But, I mean, this dude is known for – I mean, after Michigan, he went to Arizona and did the same thing. And after that, I don't even know because he just, like, fell off the map, in my opinion. And so I'm just like, the dude has bad history. So between you guys and the fan base, like, what is the opinion and mood with Rich Rod?
So we can both hit on this, but I'll go first. Honestly, for the most part, all I've heard is excitement. Because one of the biggest things is that schools like that, especially back then, the expectation was almost like championship or bust, or at the very least, like try to get to a New Year's Six bowl. Whereas here, we're just now getting into the FBS. We're not even bowl eligible until like 2025, 2026, something like that. And then coming from where we were, where we had the talent on our teams, we had the expectations, but we were kind of just plateauing once we would hit the playoffs. It was like we couldn't get over the hump and get to that next step. I think a lot of fans are really excited, especially looking at last year. His first year in implementing a new offense, you have players leaving, you have players coming in at the last second. it's like the first off season together, and then we come out of the gate and obviously we had a few extra scholarships, so we come out of the gate and just stomp Stephen F. Austin, and we see this high-flying offense that we knew we had the talent for. And I think a lot of fans are just really excited to see a coach who will take that talent and elevate it to the next level. And then also, one of the biggest things is like there was a lot of noticeable differences on the field last season. One of the biggest ones I would say is discipline. In the end of the John Gross years, we had a lot of unsportsmanlike conduct plays or just unnecessary like holdings or pass interference, just like stupid stuff. And last year, Rich Rod really kind of came in and just said, "We're not having that here." And yeah, there may be some rocky stuff in his past as far as some of the bigger schools, but I think he is one of the better coaches, especially with the coaching staff he's built, that we could have to springboard us into the beginning of being in the FBS. I think he's going to be a really good coach to really kind of set that foundation and set the mood and set the tone going forward, and kind of just laying the groundwork for whoever is to follow him whenever we approach that.
Yeah, I mean, he hit pretty much everything I was going to say. I mean, the biggest thing is, Rich Rod's offense, outside of Michigan, West Virginia, he nearly took a Big East team to the national title 2 straight years with Pat White. He beat Marcus Mariota 3 times at Arizona, once with Chip Kelly, twice with Mark Helfrich at quarterback, at head coach. And it came down to it mainly came down to the talent he had was not at the level of the conference that he was in. Right at Arizona, he was mostly upper middle tier, but he didn't have the USC, the Oregon, even the talent that Washington had. Right. You look now at Utah with the way Kyle Whittingham has recruited to get a bunch of just grinders in the trenches. He didn't have that really anywhere. And in Michigan, he busted. I think anyone with half a brain could kind of figure that part out. But going into a Group of 5 conference, which is kind of the testing grounds for these hurry up spread offenses. His is an offense that's been here for a long time, right? That 4 wide spread option, zone read offense. With a dual threat quarterback. I mean, the amount of coaches that have used it, Chip Kelly, Gus Malzahn, like all these guys have gone to national championships with basically the same system. So now that, we have an offense that really kind of highlights the athletes that we already had, kind of like Jaylen touched on. We've always had good QBs. They've just kind of been hamstrung by the scheme. But now they're kind of they're being let loose and they're able to go make plays, whereas in the past it was kind of go manage the game and don't mess up. Whereas now it's, hey, go be spectacular. So, for us, having a guy of Rich Rod's stature, it's big. He knows FBS, and when you're going in your first year, you don't want a brand new coach who's never done it before, right? You want a guy who's, been there, done that, in the big conferences, because he knows the landscape of college football. And I think, looking at his past of how all of his programs have ended. After Arizona, he was offensive coordinator at Ole Miss and then Louisiana Monroe. He's had a lot of time to kind of learn, this is what it's like to grind and, not be at a premier program every year. And he came out on top, and he said all the right things for us. He didn't even entertain any jobs, and he won the conference in year 1. It's mostly just excitement, ready to kind of see how our schedule is going to turn out, knowing that it's a lot better teams than we've been playing the last few years.
Yeah, it also helps that we're kind of playing with house money this season. Like I said, we can't go to a bowl game anyway, so it helps that we're playing with house money. Fans are just excited to see the product on the field against the bigger teams that we're playing this season and going forward. So, in general, everybody's excited. Everybody's ready to be in the stands, get that first game going, and get the season rocking and rolling, and see how we end up.
So you said Rich Rod's going into year 2.
Yeah.
What's his impact on recruiting been like at Jacksonville State? And
Man,
what's the 24 class currently look like?
and Jaylen, you can probably agree with what I'm about to say. The guys we've been pulling in, it used to be one and 2 stars and a lot of FBS transfers that weren't getting playing time. Now we're getting mid 3 stars who are really G5 ready. I mean, these are guys that are probably just from a size standpoint aren't ready to play at Power 5, but they've got the speed and they've got the skill. And again, in an offense like Rich Rod's where it's mainly space and pace, where you're going fast, getting the ball at the perimeter, spreading it out 4 wide receivers from sideline to sideline. Those kind of guys are really what we need, and he's getting them. He's getting quarterbacks who can run in the 4.3s. He's getting receivers who are they're probably only around 5'10", 5'11", but they can outrun the entire defense and make a lot of catches. And even the offensive line. Jaylen touched on the discipline issues under Coach Gross. We didn't have a lot of holding penalties. We didn't have a lot of false starts last year. They're not a super physical unit. Still mostly a zone-based game, so we're see a lot of more athletic guys, but they're disciplined. They're not committing a lot of penalties, and that was the big difference in us and a lot of wins and losses those last 2 years under Coach Gross, because we kept getting penalized in crucial situations.
Mm-hmm.
Now
we're not. Now we line up on a 3rd and 3 and think, we can step up and run power, and we aren't going to have to worry about a false start that sets us back. So, yeah, the recruiting's been huge. He's got the talent that's very disciplined, and it's only going to get better the more money we bring in from a bigger conference. So,
yeah, I can't lie. I'm not super knowledgeable on the 24 class right now. Kind of slacking in that department, but the 23 class, there was a lot of excitement just amongst our fans on Twitter seeing some of the guys we were pulling in, because like before we were losing. Obviously, we're not necessarily like super competing and recruiting with your Bamas and your UGAs and your Auburns, but like we were losing guys to Troy and we were losing guys to Georgia Southern, but now we're able to actually, kind of go in and get some of those guys to reconsider, hey, we're building something here. We got a high flying offense. I mean, our defense has always been one of our stronger suits. I mean, you can even look you can look back and see we have had a lot of really big defensive players, but like now that we have a coach who can go out there and have a high flying offense, like Caleb said, we're getting those dual threat quarterbacks who are really good. We're getting those speedy wide receivers. We're getting those strong running backs, and it's looking like it's going to be a very fun season. Obviously, some of those guys aren't going to touch the field right away, but I mean, even if they get a couple of snaps here, I know our fans are just itching to see some people.
Is there any standouts that come to mind to keep an eye on for 2023 on both sides of the ball?
So I think on offense, and we can both touch on it because I know we may have some differences. On offense, one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to is seeing who ultimately comes out of that QB battle. I know some of the bigger names in the QB room to look for, because I think we have like 7 or 8 right now on the depth chart or on the roster. Zion Webb, he's been around for what feels like 8 years.
mm-hmm.
He just got a waiver to come back for his 6th year. but he's been our quarterback the last couple of years. And then I know a lot of people were looking forward to see Tayshawn Smoot, which is one of our recruits we got in. He's a redshirt freshman, dual threat. He has insane speed, great arm. It's just a matter of if he's developed and ready enough. And then I know a couple of months ago, we got a Nebraska transfer, Logan Smothers, which you always – some people feel a type of way about transfers, but I think transfers are good, especially when you have a guy who was at a Power 5 program, even if he may not have touched the field a lot. Just being at a Power 5 program and going through, the practices and the drills and the workouts, I think that's a big help. Even if he doesn't get the job, that's a big help for him, in that room with all the other quarterbacks. And then also Anwar Lewis coming out of the backfield. I don't know if you've watched any highlights, but that dude is a beast. He's an amazing running back. If he gets even a sliver of a hole, it's over. I mean, he had some huge runs last year where it's like you just knew he was going to be tackled, but you look up and he's 40 yards down the field before they finally get him down, or maybe he's in the end zone. And then defense coming off the edge, J-Rock Swain, that dude he's one of those where he's going to give offensive lines some trouble. He will get in the backfield, even if he doesn't get the quarterback down. His hands will be on the quarterback 9 snaps out of 10. I can assure you that. Like, he is one of those guys where offensive lines are going to have to game plan for him. He is insane. I can't wait to see what he does against some of these bigger teams because we've had a lot of bigger teams when they play us. They underestimate us, and then you got guys like him that come out and just kind of punch him in the mouth, and I can't wait.
I love to see some tough runners, especially at running back, the like bruiser back types. You just catch them running downhill, and you go to meet them, and it's like, punch them in the face. It hurts. It hits so hard.
JSU has always had a good combo of like a bruiser back and then a speedy back. Like we always have a good 1-2 punch coming out of the backfield because I think Ron Wiggins is coming back. That dude is also insane. Like we have an insane breadth of talent. Like teams are probably not ready for the depth that we have, especially on offense.
Speaking of depth, where do you guys feel like JSU has the most depth, and what position, and it could be on both sides of the ball, do you feel like JSU is the most dangerous at, meaning like, well, if this dude gets hurt, that's okay, because this dude over here is 2 times as good?
I would probably go with really one of 2 rooms. I'd either go with the running back room, just because it's a stable. Even under Coach Gross, they always had a really good stable of 3-4 running backs that just keep handing off to. I look at the secondary, a lot of veteran guys in the secondary room. Those are the 2 I'd say, because it just feels like, especially last season, running backs, corner, not as much in the corners, but in the safeties, there's a lot of depth, a lot of help over the top. So yeah, I'd like to see a little more depth at the wide receiver room, but
we'll get
a lot of recruitment. It's got to happen. Sorry, my fiance is right here on the other side of the computer. So.
Yeah, I would have to agree running back and definitely secondary. I mean, and honestly, seeing the way we've been recruiting and just knowing Rich Rod's offense, I think the quarterback room also has a lot of depth. I mean, like I said, we have 8 guys on the roster, but 3 that I named that I think are capable of taking over the offense at any second, which that's insane to have 3 quarterbacks that you think could, step in and, run the game. We ran a couple of 2 quarterback games last year where, Zion would play, and then one of our other quarterbacks would come in and play, and it threw some teams off, because most of the time you go into a game and you're only preparing for one quarterback. Like most teams, they have 2 or 3 running backs because it's a long game, and there's 5 or 6 wide receivers, but most teams you go into a game and you're only going to run that one quarterback, whereas we have the ability to throw in somebody else if somebody goes down, or even if we just kind of want to switch it up a little bit. And I think that's very dangerous, and I think that's a great advantage for us.
Well, with that being said, while we kind of gather our thoughts, I think this is a great time to take a 30-second break, and let's play this awesome commercial from our great sponsor, eBay.
In a world full of fakes, how do you avoid buying fake items that look just like the real thing? Are you getting faked over? Experts say it's all in the details.
All right, welcome back. Thank you again, eBay, for that awesome commercial. And if you need a shop vac or you need a solar panel kit because you want to build a solar panel, please use the link in the description and go over to eBay and get you out of the home and garden section a nice shop vac. I mean, I did some looking over the shop vacs in there, and some of them are really good for a decent price. Some of them probably still really good for a little bit higher price than I'd be willing to pay. But you know what? Go over there and get you something. All right. So now that we've come back, there's 2 transitions I want to make, because I've never had band members on the show, or the channel I should say. So I would like to, and I'll leave it up to you guys where you want to go first. I would like to do a little bit on the life of a band member at a university. I'm sure you guys are like, man, if we come on, I'm sure we're gonna have to talk about that at some point. Or we could go in the direction of kind of breaking down this schedule and kind of what we see Jacksonville State doing.
We can definitely hit both. The first one. So one of the biggest things with band kids in universities, you're going to see basically 3 very distinct styles of marching band. You're going to have your football band that's mainly just geared towards being in the stands for game day. Most of those are going to be your UGAs, your Bamas, your Penn States, just the basic. We'll come in, play the classics, and then we'll play all the stand tunes. We may play some like modern stand tunes and whatnot. And then you have your HBCUs. Everybody loves a good HBCU band. They always keep the crowd entertained, and they're always playing the hottest new music, man. We had a couple HBCUs come to JSU in my time, and their bands would come, and our fans loved them. We loved them. It's always a great time. And then you have what the style of our band is. We're called the Marching Southerners. You have our style where we like to put on more of a show. Similar to what Ohio State does. Ohio State does a different show every game, though. We just have one show for the whole season. But for us, we have 2 weeks of band camp, 9 in the morning until 9 at night. And then as far as during the school year goes, you do your classes, and then practice was at 4:15, 4:15
Yeah.
to 5:45 Monday through Wednesday. Um, Thursdays were until like 8 o'clock. Fridays, depending on where we were in the season, could be show up, run the show a few times, run pregame for tomorrow and go home, or it could be we're there until 5:45, 6 o'clock on Fridays. Um, and then Saturdays just depend. For us, being a smaller school at the time, if it was an out of state game, we usually did not go. There were a couple of exceptions, like I know for at least for FCS out of state games, we went to Chattanooga, um, and then we went to both of the Kennesaw State games. Um, but Saturdays could be anywhere from you just wake up and go to warm ups any at various spots around campus, or if it's like one of our big SEC games, we usually leave that Friday, um, get a hotel room somewhere, and then most of those bigger games we had to be in the stadium before the rest of the crowd, so we'd have to wake up early, get into the stadium, and kind of just sit around. But it's fun. It's rewarding. You get to go to all the games. And at JSU, a pretty we've been pretty fortunate to where John Dross and now Rich Rod both are very big supporters of the band. Um, they love what we do. They know that the atmosphere on game days wouldn't be what it is without the band. I mean, there have been times where they were thinking about not taking the band to one of our big SEC games or something like that. And the alumni or the athletic director stepped in and said, "Nah, here's the money," or "Nah, we're going to make it work." Especially because our band is 500 strong. So most SEC schools do not give up enough seats for 500 kids. So our athletic director has been fortunate enough to sometimes either just give us part of our like fan allotment of tickets, or even go out and buy extra tickets for seats so that the whole band could go. Um, so we're very lucky there that at JSU, like the band is very much a valued part of the game day atmosphere.
Yeah, I mostly concur with Jaylen, albeit um, I'll say this about our games. We were a lot less involved in the games than a lot of SEC bands were, just because we don't have as many stand tunes as they do. So weekdays were where most of our work was done. We didn't do a lot on game days besides perform, which was nice. It got a lot easier when Rich Rod showed up because we don't have time to play anymore because the offense goes too fast. But yeah, I mean, life being a college band member, it's pretty fun. You know, I mean, I marched 6 years. I think Jaylen did 5 or 6 years, and you meet a lot of people, most of whom you like, some of whom you don't. I mean, that's everywhere. That's regardless of where you go. No, it's a fun life. Lot, free games are nice. Being a student, being in the band. Me specifically, I was in the basketball pep band as well. And that just kind of keeps it going year round. It's a fun life. I will say this: in most college bands, you have less rehearsal time than you do in high school. Most high schools are after school from like 3 to 6, and we weren't even showing up till about 4:15. And a lot of times left before 5:45, as long as we did what we were supposed to. So
Yeah.
So it was pretty easy life for 6 years.
Yeah. I would say the parts that I wouldn't say hated, but the parts that definitely were a little rough were we performed at the end of marching band competitions like as an exhibition performance, almost like a recruiting tool of sorts. And there were times where we would have we perform pregame, we're there for the game, we perform halftime, and then we hop on the bus and go to a high school competition to perform exhibition right after the game. So it's like you wake up at 7 o'clock that morning, you're not getting back into your bed until like 1 a.m. And
Yeah.
like, obviously, we're not out there in pads and everything, but
Right.
sitting out there in the hot sun, and those uniforms are not thin. So sitting out there in the hot sun, playing, performing, being on that turf field with the sun beaming on it. Because being in the South on the turf field, there are times when it feels like your shoes are melting. So doing that all day long, it definitely gets tiring sometimes, but it's rewarding. Our fans love us. I mean, they'll stay through a whole game because there are sometimes we'll have to perform after the game if it's like homecoming or whatever.
Mhm.
Our fans will stay all the way through the game and wait however long it takes for us to set up and do our show after the game. So it's really nice. We have a unique viewpoint at JSU when it comes to band kids and the support we get from the athletics and from the fans and the community as a whole. So it's really nice.
So can you walk us through? Because I must have not caught that. It sounds like you guys aren't like actually with the band now. You're former band members.
Yeah, former.
We're both alumni.
Well, that's got to be awesome. But can you kind of walk us through game day for a band member? And based on what you were saying about like the beating sun, I know it probably doesn't rain too much down in the South, but when it would, I bet to a degree, you were hoping for those game days on a rainy day.
Hoping, I don't know, because pretty much every time we've had rain, it's been monsoons.
Yep.
And so we luckily we have ponchos for the entire organization. So you throw your poncho on, but we did not leave the game.
Yeah.
We're both brass players, so rain didn't mess up our instruments, so we had to keep playing. All the woodwinds got to put their instruments up because you can't get those messed up. But we had to keep playing. It's pouring, even with the poncho on. Like you're still getting drenched. Your feet are all soggy and squishy, and yeah, it was nice because you didn't have to do a halftime or a post game show, but it was still a little miserable.
Yeah. And there's the we talk about Alabama and having the heat. We also have hurricanes down here, unfortunately. And football season, specifically like mid-September to late October, is the prime of hurricane season. And I remember 2017 explicitly, we had 4 hurricanes impact Alabama in that one season, and so it rained a ton. But here's the problem: it doesn't cool off; it just gets hotter because the rain leaves and then the sun comes out, and then it just gets steamy. And so it'd be 100 degrees.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, you cut out.
Well,
in terms of weather.
But yeah, back to like a game day schedule. Most of our kickoffs were around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock Central. So you would wake up around 8, have a report time around 9:30, 10, depending on your section and your section leader. We'd warm up, walk into the stadium, and then we do pregame before every game. And then you're in the stands for the next 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 4 hours, depending. And then depending on if there were halftime festivities, we either march halftime or post game. And then after that, if we didn't have any other responsibilities, you're free to do whatever. But I mean, it was on average, you'd spend around 7 to 8 hours doing band stuff or being at the field on game day. Pretty much just as much as football players, just obviously totally different perspective and responsibilities.
not as physical and whatnot per se.
Yeah.
So what kind of what I don't know how to put this. What led you to the choice of wanting to be in the marching band? And because you mentioned the word recruiting in a sense, so I guess in a sense the band also recruits, but like, what was the process like, the transition from high school marching band to a college marching band?
You want it or you want me to take it? Because mine was probably a little bit different than yours.
I mean, we can both take it. Yeah,
I'd love to hear both.
Yeah, we have a little different perspective. For me, my high school, our band was a pretty competitive high school marching band. We did a lot of bigger competitions, a lot of the bigger circuits. So for me, it was kind of just a lateral move. The biggest thing is you sign up for camp, you register for camp, and then we don't have auditions until you get to camp, which requires marching and playing, just to kind of see where your skill level is at. But like I said, for me, I came from a pretty competitive high school, so it was kind of a lateral move for me. Wasn't much of a shock. A lot of the stuff we did at JSU, I did at my high school, and it was kind of just keeping the train rolling a little bit. But as far as recruiting goes, we say recruit in the sense that, like I said, we perform at the end of high school competitions. And that's really how a lot of college marching bands that do the type of shows that we do, that's how they get a lot of their members, especially because most of the bands that perform like we do are not super huge names. There's like us, there's University of North Alabama, there's Western Carolina, there's James Madison, which they're a bigger name now. But a lot of us, we don't really have that big name where kids will just go to school there and then by proxy be in the marching band like you would at in Alabama or UGA, USC. So we really relied on going to those competitions, or even if we have a big SEC game, like when we went to LSU, the Friday we left, we went down to a high school and performed at their football game. Just kind of meeting the kids, telling them about how we do. They get to see our show, and then the next day we go on to LSU. But yeah, that's a lot of how we recruit in a sense. Just going and performing for the kids to see, and kids absolutely love us. One of the big shocks for me was there was a show my freshman year. We were coming off the field. It was one of our regular shows we do, and these kids are like begging to have our drumsticks and the gloves that we wear and everything. And it's like, you don't want this, I promise. It's sweaty, it's gross, it's disgusting. But these kids are going crazy. I mean, it's similar to like if, say, CJ Stroud or Bryce Young were to go perform, do like a pickup game for a rec league or something. Of course, afterwards the kids will just be all over them. Obviously, we're not that huge, but the kids are still just as crazy.
Walk us through the process of making the show,
Okay,
like the
that one.
halftime and whatnot, without giving away stuff that you're not supposed to, of course.
In terms of like designing it or putting it on the field?
Just like the whole process, like from the start when the band is trying to decide on the process of like how to do the show, all the way to the finished product of what we see on the field.
So my last year was 2021, and we finished band camp the second week of August, and we got to a night rehearsal in the stadium, and the director's like, "Yeah, by the way, we've already started the design meetings for next year's show." They start pretty early because our shows are super in depth. They've got to work on getting our arranger has to get copyrights for all the artists that we use music from. Um, they've got to start crunching. All right, what is the schedule going to look like? Um, for games, for exhibitions, going to competitions and stuff. So for the shows that they expect to be a lot bigger, it starts the fall before. But normally the planning cycle will start, I'd say probably January or February. Um, no, sorry, I'd say December, and then they have the show design like picked by January and February every year. Usually, the show is announced Valentine's Day night. At midnight, they release it online. Um, and so they take those 3-4 months before to get all of the selections together, um, get everything ready, and then once it's announced, they they usually already have MIDI files of kind of the beginning of what we're playing, and so we can hear it. Um, by the time late March rolls around, they're putting out early drafts of the sheet music for us to look at. Late April, we have this event called the Southerner Symposium, which has all the incoming freshmen um, come in and learn how to march our style. They read the music with us. It's for the new section leaders. It's their first chance to lead um, a group of people and kind of get used to what they're about to do for the next season. And then summer hits, and it's until July. It's actually pretty quiet. The marching ballerinas, our dance line, will have a lot of practices in the summer because them and the color guard get started pretty much from April from on, and they don't stop. But the horn line and the percussion normally starts late June, early July with sectional rehearsals, brass woodwind rehearsals, and then band camp hits first week of August every year without failure. In fact, it started. Today's Monday. This year it actually started yesterday, and those 6 months, it's all planning to get ready for that last week of August when JSU always has their first game. And after that, they're starting to put together for the next year. So it's a lot like the NFL where your season ends and you're immediately having meetings with your coaches, with your position staff to get ready for the next season. It really doesn't stop.
Yeah.
For us, it does, but for the directors, for the staff, it never stops. It is a 24/7, 365-day gig. For us at least, getting our stuff ready, just because our show is so in depth and so more advanced than most collegiate shows. So.
Yeah. And then, like for us, once you hit band camp, we usually march around 10-minute shows. That's usually about the amount of time we have for half. If we're sharing the field with somebody else for halftime, that's about the amount of time we have to perform a whole show. Mm-hmm. So our shows are usually around 10 minutes, and we will usually get we'll usually get a good chunk, probably about 75% of that show on the field within those 2 weeks, which doesn't sound like a lot, but whenever you have to learn all new drill, which is like our formations, how to get from formation to formation, and all new music, because usually by the time we get to band camp, the sheet music has changed 4 times.
Yep.
But all new music, all new drill, and you have 10 minutes worth of doing those combined, as well as several other things going on in your mind at one time. We usually get a good 75 to 80% of the show on in those 2 weeks, and then we use the rehearsals after classes and stuff to go ahead and finish up the rest. And, I mean, we usually have the full show done by the end of September at the very latest. But usually it's around mid-September we'll have the full show done. And then from there, it's just kind of nitpicking and working on how can we fix this here, this there? There may be a few slight music changes. I mean, it's kind of like relating it to football whenever you run a game plan and you're like, well, this didn't work quite how we thought it would. Let's kind of tweak these things here and there. That's basically what we do throughout the season once the show is on. It's not, we got it on good, that's done. No, we try to keep getting better and better. Better than the last is what a lot of the sections and the marching band say. You always want the show you're about to perform to be better than the last show you just did. So that's the big thing, just really getting detail-oriented, very nitpicky, just making those tweaks to try and get the best sound, the best look that we can. Because that's one thing we pride ourselves on is just looking good, sounding good, and just being a product that people would overall enjoy.
So you guys had mentioned that like your show is like one show compared to like Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, etc.
Yeah.
So is the process I mean, you obviously may not know per se. Do you think the process is the same for the bigger schools that do a different show every game, or do you think that it is the same, it's just vamped up, or like what are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm actually from Auburn. I've been to several Auburn University marching band rehearsals, and I know a lot about that band. They learn 3 shows a year, as well as homecoming and Veterans Day, and then if they play the weekend of 9/11, they'll do a 9/11 memorial show as well. So 5 to 6 shows a year. They will perform each one 2 to 3 times. 2 times really, because they only play 8 home games, 7, 8 home games every year. So they really don't perform each show much. Their process is a lot different because they will be rehearsing, like in that gray area between each show of the year. They're rehearsing both shows in rehearsal. So they'll do, like, let's say it's a 2-hour rehearsal. The first hour, like for a home game, they will grind on pregame because Auburn's pregame is super, super hard. And then they'll do a chunk for the show they're performing and then a chunk for the show they're learning. Their rehearsals, and this isn't like a knock on us saying that, we have it easy or anything, but Auburn's rehearsals have to be super efficient because they're learning so much at one time. And they're doing so many different concepts. Whereas us, we have this one show and the framework stays the same from start to finish. And the only thing we're really going to adjust is we may adjust a set here and there just to make the shape a little bit cleaner, make the formation cleaner. We will adjust music so that from the field it won't sound as bad. Like if there's a section that just doesn't voice properly to the fans, we'll know it because our directors are up in the box listening to it, and we'll get to rehearsal and they'll say, hey, this doesn't like speak to the crowd, so we're gonna change something that'll make it a little more clean. But from August until November, the only different show we do is our reunion, is our Southerners reunion show. And even then, after the game, we do a post-game show that is the full run of our show. So we don't change up anything. We learn one thing from start to finish, and our goal is to perfect it so that when it hits October and the weather's perfect and we're not dying, we can have our best runs for the high school students so that they can look at us and say, hey, I want to go to JCU and be a Southerner, and we can keep recruiting. You mentioned the recruiting process. If we don't sound good, they don't show up. And I remember 2 years ago, we did a show for a Bands of America competition, and we performed so poorly, we didn't even post the video on YouTube. It was one of probably the worst run that we've had since I was there. And our directors were really, really frustrated that next week because it came out of nowhere. We had a great rehearsal week, and then we tanked it in the show, and they had to look around like, where did this come from? Why did this happen? So, we try to be more efficient than we are, and we've actually gotten better, but compared to other schools that learn 3 or 4 shows, we do a lot less in rehearsals.
Yeah, I will say I actually have been lucky to talk to somebody, a couple of people who are in the Ohio State marching band. And I mean, as you know, they have basically a new show every home game.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest differences that Caleb kind of touched on is since we have the same show all year, we're able to slow our practices down a little bit and nitpick, whereas theirs, you have 2.5, 3 hours, and you have to try and get this whole show down in a week or 2 weeks if you have 2 weeks in between home games. And so for them, it's basically band camp before every home game because they have to hit the ground running and shove as much as they can into these 2 weeks so that they can go out and be the amazing marching band that they are. Because, I mean, everybody knows about them. Everybody loves them. But yeah, like Caleb said, not a knock on us. We're just able to slow down a little bit more and focus on a lot more, whereas those schools just have to be a lot quicker, have to be a lot more efficient. But hey, I love all marching band, honestly.
Mhm.
We've been
Yeah,
lucky
me
to
too.
see several different styles whenever the visiting bands do come or whenever we do travel. So I love it.
So, and it's not a knock on you guys, nor is it a knock on like the bigger schools, but it's almost like in a weird kind of way. It's almost like the smaller schools like JSU is kind of like up here, whereas the other schools are all the bigger schools are all kind of like down here because, like you both have said, you guys being up here factors in the advantage of like, okay, we're doing one show the entire year. So basically, if you come to one home game, other than watching the football team play during the game, you've seen all the games as far as the band show. Whereas I put the bigger schools down here because, like you said, Jaylen, all the bigger schools, Ohio State, Bama, UGA, FSU, whoever, all do a different show.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily put us different levels like that. It's just different styles.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, like I said, I love Ohio. I love knowing Ohio State has a home game. What's the show this week? And then some people like the more traditional style of your Bama, your UGA. So it's not necessarily like tier 1, tier 2. It's just different styles. Each style has their advantage. Each style has their disadvantage. Because with the other schools, fans show up knowing they're going to see something different every week. Our fans, even though they stay for after every game and they love us, they know it's the same thing. It's the same thing every week, and they're just coming back because they love us, they support us, and we try to put on a great show. So, like I said, just different styles, not necessarily like a tier 1, tier 2. Some people like our style. Some people prefer the rotation. Just depends. Everybody has their own thing. Some people like shotgun. Some people like spread offense.
Yeah.
All right. So let's kind of transition to, I'm sure, what everybody wants to talk about. And let's talk about the 2023 schedule.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
of course, on the website, it's labeled as Conference USA, the next chapter. As Jacksonville State looks to start in the CUSA this year. And starting off on August 26th, I would assume that's week 0, I believe it is.
Yes.
Jacksonville State plays UTEP at home, followed by I would almost consider somewhat of a gauntlet stretch in
yeah.
September.
Yeah, we play 6 straight bowl teams.
Yeah.
And I've got notes on every team we play.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Except for East Tennessee State, because I couldn't find any YouTube videos from last year that really showed what they did. But every other school on the schedule, I've got notes on, from whether it's highlights or just being familiar with them, having watched college football. So,
Yeah, from Coastal down honestly down through the rest of the season is just
It's scary.
it's powerhouse after powerhouse. Like it's going to be a good test for our first year being in FBS.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what you guys can take it one at a time, but starting with UTEP, what are your guys' thoughts on that game? And I mean, if you want to stretch through September, that's fine too, and kind of give a little synopsis for each game and kind of, I guess, what's your prediction?
So my biggest thing, especially looking at UTEP and ETSU, those are our first two games. Being FBS now. Um, I think a lot of people are really looking at those two games to kind of set the benchmark for how our season goes. I mean, like obviously you can either improve or you can tank as the season goes on, but I think a lot of people are really especially looking at those two games being home games. We're lucky enough to get our first two games at home.
Yeah.
I think people are really looking at those two games to try and see where the energy is, where the discipline is. Like, how are we going to come out? Like, are we going to come out ready to just punch people in the mouth and just kind of get back to where we were last season and improve on that? And like I said, being lucky enough to have the first two games at home, especially starting off in the FBS, our fans absolutely go crazy. They will show up and show out for games. They will pack those stands as long as the weather is nice. If it's raining, like we said, you may
Maybe
see you'll see the faithful, but as long as we had good weather, those will be some packed games. I mean, and that's one thing I noticed last year is the team also kind of fed off of that. Like obviously they were ready to play anyway, but whenever the fans show up and they're ready to go, the team feeds off of that, and it just the opening games I've been a part of at JSU have always been insane. We've usually won. I think we've won almost all of them. At least our true home games. We had a couple of like week 0 kickoff classic games. But our first true home games, we usually come out just ready to go. Our players always get super hyped whenever they see those stands packed.
Mm-hmm. Looking at my notes, and I'll just go ahead and preface this. I also write for a blog for Auburn, and I do a lot of our analytical writing, so I do most of the schematics. So looking at UTEP, for those of you who are sickos when it comes to college football, their head coach was Bill Snyder's offensive coordinator at Kansas State. So you're going to get a lot of that quarterback run game, RPO, spread to runs stuff. They struggled up front last year, really on both sides, and we didn't. So I'm really looking as that kind of a show up, establish the run, establish the RPO game with the wide receiver screens, force them to defend sideline to sideline, and then also on the defensive end, really try to get the front seven, locked in early on the run game and force them to drop back and pass. Because when they get into their RPO game and they're comfortable, they're tough to stop. I mean, it's like Baylor back under Art Briles. When they were going fast, they were hard to stop. But if you force them to throw, drop back, you had a chance. I think that one it should be a win. If we get off the bus, and normally we do in game one. Outside of 1 year that I remember, and that was that UAB game I think 2 seasons ago when we got ran off the field. East Tennessee State, I don't know much about them besides their head coach used to be at Furman. That's really all I know, and that they were like 3-8 last year. That one should be a win. I think we played them in the playoffs a few years ago and beat them by about 40. So in the rain of all days. So, but no, after East Tennessee State, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 8 of the last 10 opponents after East Tennessee State went to bowl games last year. Mm-hmm. 7 of the last 10. Sam Houston wasn't an FBS team, but I have some notes on them that'll show just how good they are. But Getting into Coastal, man.
Oof.
They've been good for a few years now under Jamie Chadwell, and even though he's left, they went and got one of Urban Meyer's Ohio State offensive coordinators to be head coach. So now they're running a spread option that's really fast. They've got Grayson McCall back, who has been one of the people don't realize it. He has actually been on pace to be at or near Baker Mayfield's efficiency record during his career because he doesn't throw hardly any interceptions. He throws a lot of touchdowns. And that's the first road game of the year. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah.
Really,
When I was looking at the schedule, that's one of the ones I starred because one, like we said, Coastal has been a pretty solid team the past couple of years. I know a lot of people always overlook them, and then they have that one game. Well, they always have a great season, but they have that one game every year where they upset somebody, and people are like Coastal Carolina. But that's one of the ones I started because it's our first road game, and it's a pretty big road game at that. That's a pretty smash mouth team, and like you said, that starts the gauntlet of teams that are they're not going to back down. They're going to be ready. They're going to show up day in and day out, which we got lucky playing in the FCS. Like we would catch some teams slipping and kind of slip by and win a game that we probably shouldn't have. But we're not going to get that out of Coastal Carolina, Eastern Michigan, Liberty, FIU. Like we're not going to see that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Like most of the time we're going to show up, especially if it's a road game, and these teams are going to be ready because they know we're coming in with a chip on our shoulder with something to prove, and they want to shut us down. So Coastal's one of those I have started because first road game, solid team, and we just have to get off the bus ready to go. Road games in general, the team is just going to have to get off the bus with that mentality because with it being the CUSA, some of these games are just not feasible for a large fan base to travel to. I mean, we have UTEP. I think I was looking up UTEP's 20 hours away. New Mexico State's 20 hours away. Sam Houston State is 12. Liberty and Louisiana Tech are like 8.5 hours away. So
it's kind of feasible.
Yeah, those are a little bit more feasible, but like our that is really going to show how our team is going to do going forward with road games, especially if they're ready to get off the bus and go and not necessarily rely on the fans to hype them up and keep them going.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like feasible for the fan base to travel, I mean, Sam Houston, Middle Tennessee, FIU.
Yeah.
Probably not going to show up as far as the fan base because, like, Sam Houston, it's on a Thursday night. Middle Tennessee, Wednesday night. FIU, Wednesday night. No matter if it's only 8.5 hour drive. Well, there's work the next day or there's school the next day.
Yep. That's the one thing about the CUSA schedule in October is those midweek games are great for, TV and, getting the viewership, but visiting fans and even some of the home fans just aren't going to be able to do a 6:30 or 7 o'clock kickoff on a Wednesday night or a Thursday night, like you said, because that would require either just having to be brain dead at work the next day or go in late or call off the next day altogether. Because with an 8-hour or with the drive to FIU, you can't just turn around and drive right back after the game. That's rough. It'll be a good test for our team just to see that, like, hey, we're not going to have a lot of opposing fans outside of family members or people that just so happen to live in the general area of wherever we're playing. So I think that Coastal Carolina game is going to be a big benchmark just to see in general the how our team fares on the road.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know South Carolina, which is the big one in November, or New Mexico State to close out the year. I know that's kind of like, well, especially with South Carolina, it's like, do we go? Yeah, it's on a Saturday, and it could be nice depending on time of day. But do we go? Because, I mean, no offense, but depending on what Spencer Rattler you get out of South Carolina, I don't foresee Jacksonville State winning that game.
I'm gonna have to go out on a limb and say our fans will not agree with that. One thing our fans are really solid about is we genuinely believe we can go in any game, any of those big names. We believe we can go in and steal that game away. We did it with Ole Miss. We almost did it with Auburn. We kind of stumbled there at the end. LSU was a different story. Death Valley is hard for anybody to go in. We see a lot of SEC teams struggle in Death Valley. And then we went into FSU and took it from them. So our fans genuinely believe that we can win any of those big games at any given moment. We have the team to do it. We've proven it before, and we'll keep doing it. We'll do it again. Yeah, Spencer Rattler definitely is the key, which version of him we get. But I believe he could go off and we could still be right there neck and neck with them. We just have that kind of team and we have that kind of grit and fight that we're not going to give up. A lot of people thought we were dead in the water in the FSU game. Look what we pulled it out. We played all the way until the clock hit 000. So, yeah, it'll be one of those games where people will show up. Like, we have some crazy fans. People will show up to that game, especially since it's on a Saturday, and they will expect to win. Until we get to the point to where the nail is in the coffin, if it gets to that point, we will always think we have a chance to come back. We will always think we have a chance to win. Those are the games where JSU has a history of like proving ourselves, kind of making it to the point to where some of these schools don't come calling back to schedule us again, because it's a much harder game than teams usually plan for with their cupcake schedule.
Yeah. Where were y'all talking? I had to run and grab my charger before my laptop died.
We were talking about the USC game.
Well, we were going. I was trying to go in order, but I was just kind of pointing some things out. But I mean, wherever you really want to go, we're gonna break them all down to a degree. So,
so I know we did UTEP, Eastern, and Coastal. So I guess we'll get to Eastern Michigan. The biggest thing I saw with Eastern Michigan is, they're a multiple team. They do a lot of stuff on offense, pro style. So they'll be pistol, shotgun, get a little bit under center. They won 8 games last year. And, yeah, it's a home game, but, it's a team that played in a bowl game. I can't remember if they beat San Jose State or not, but they played in the Idaho Bowl against San Jose State, I'm pretty sure. And, I mean, they won 8 games, so they're a solid team. It's going to be a tough home game, one of the bigger home games of the year. I think you win that one, you get to potentially 3-1, and then you go really into the just meat of the schedule. It's just one after another, 8, 9, 10-win teams.
I think Eastern Michigan is going to be a good test for our defense. Like you said, they're going to throw a lot at us. Our defense is really going to have to learn how to adjust, or not necessarily learn. They're just going to have to be ready to adjust on the fly. They're going to see a lot of different schemes. It's going to be one of those true tests of like, are you ready to step up and just do what needs to be done? And I know our team is. That just goes back to the coaching staff. Rich Rod has a lot of hard-nosed guys on that staff that they're not going to take any bull crap. The teams are going to be ready. It'll be a nice picture to see, like, hey, this team is capable of doing it all. You ready to show up and prove everybody that you can hang in there with them. Because, again, that's what this season is all about, just proving that we belong. There are a lot of doubters, both fans that are already fans of FBS schools and fans of FCS schools. We heard a lot of people in the Facebook groups of the FCS Facebook groups and stuff. People are doubting that we were ready to move up. So I think that's one of those games. I mean,
Yeah.
especially coming off of a tough week at Coastal, where we can really prove that hey, we can hang in there with all of them.
Yeah, I mean, to
Yeah.
touch on Eastern Michigan, I to Caleb's point, yeah, they won the Idaho Bowl 41-27. So I mean, as much as people mostly focus on like, oh, who's Eastern Michigan? Eastern Michigan is the team that's like Boise and Eastern Washington. They have the black field instead of the blue and the red field. Well, you know, eventually Eastern's going to have a good enough coach to actually have a good product on the field, and I think that's what we're finally starting to see out of Eastern. And you know,
Yeah.
the next week, or I should say later in that week, you got Sam Houston in Sam Houston, and that's an old FCS foe.
Yeah, we did not play them much. They didn't come up
Yeah.
on our
Sam Houston.
regular season.
Oh, Jaylen, you got it.
Yeah, they didn't come up much in our regular
Yeah.
season schedule. I don't think they did at all, at least in my time there. From what I remember, the only time we played them while I was there was the 2015 playoffs, which, like I said, that was the season we just went crazy. So we haven't seen a lot of them, but the two games that I have in my recent memory, they were two totally different games. They blew us out. I think it was 2014, and then we turned around in 2015. I knew that game was going to be a blowout because we started the game off with an onside kick and recovered it. Started the game off with an onside kick. So we haven't seen them much, and it's been at least the two games I can remember have been two totally different products. So it'll be nice to actually see them pretty regularly, but still kept up with them in the FCS, and they were one of those teams where when it came to predicting who was in the playoffs, Sam Houston was always going to be there. They usually had a high-powered offense, pretty solid defense. They're one of those like all-around teams where they may not necessarily have any like super standouts, but they don't have many big like glaring flaws either. They're one of those, they just kind of put the ball on the ground and run it at you, and you just got to stop them.
Yeah. And kind of a little tidbit on Sam Houston, and I guess being a Big Ten football guy, you're familiar with Wisconsin football. Wisconsin's new offensive coordinator, Phil Longo, was the offensive coordinator at Sam Houston State for several years. That's where he kind of got his biggest start before he went to Ole Miss under now Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze. He was at Sam Houston. I think every year they were averaging 550, 570, 600 yards of offense, just up and down the field, left and right. And their head coach, Casey Keeler, is in his 10th year. He's been there the whole time. Really, ever since Sam Houston started going off, he's been the head coach. They're a team I think can translate right away to FBS, especially at the Group of 5 level, because G5, it's all about how creative can you get on offense, and then can you make some plays on defense, right? At the Power 5 level, you're looking, all right, you want to control the line of scrimmage on both sides. You want to make big plays, and a lot of teams want to go fast, but if winning the trench battle is more important at the Power 5 level. Whereas Group of 5, you want to get out on the perimeter, you want to be quick. You want some of those undersized guys. You look at how UCF won the Peach Bowl back in 2017. That national championship season, it was because they had all the speed and they had these guys that other teams didn't wanted. So Sam Houston, I think right away they've got the talent to maybe not compete to win the conference in year one, but probably win 7, 8, maybe 9 games this year. And I think they're a day one contributor to the Conference USA. And it's a road game. It's gonna be tough for people to travel because it's a weeknight game out in Texas. Be a tough one to win. I'll tell you what, if they win, that might get us to 4-2, 5-1.
Yeah, I just don't
I'd
see
love to see it
fans
happen,
making.
but it'll be tough.
I just don't see fans making those October road games. Maybe Middle Tennessee State. I know me and Caleb were both thinking about trying to make it work.
Yeah.
But those October road games, it's just going to be hard to get fans out there. So, like I said, that's
Well,
just an
I mean, the thing that does help, it is only two. It's Middle Tennessee and FIU.
or Middle Tennessee and Sam Houston.
That's September.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Yeah,
But
By the
so
way, we normally don't travel well onto those long games.
so let's see. I guess
But, you know, it
we're
is what
what,
it is.
Middle Tennessee now, or are we on Liberty?
that same
We're
chunk.
Middle
I
Tennessee,
mean,
a team I'm uniquely familiar with because I'm originally from Tennessee.
yeah,
Good team, another 8-9 win football team. They've had the same coach since 2006. He's been there forever. They're air raid team. Like to throw the ball around the yard, which has been one of our, for whatever reasons, it's been kind of our bugaboo. Our secondary has always been our weakness on defense. We have some hard hitters, but we're not great in coverage. We're not great out on the perimeter, which has killed us against air raid and triple option teams when they get out on the perimeter because we're not a great tackling team. Now, last year we were better. Again, this is a weeknight road game. I think more fans will travel to this than they will to Florida International, but
yeah.
I'd like to see us win this game. I think we can. I mean, I think we can win a lot of the games on the schedule. It's just more, will we? So this is
Yeah.
kind of one of those wait and see type games. Want to see how things are looking through 6 games for both squads, but I trust Rich Rod.
Yeah, that Middle Tennessee is. I view Middle Tennessee as kind of like what Coastal was a couple of years ago when they first kind of broke onto the scene. Middle Tennessee is starting to get the respect. They have they've had some pretty great offenses here lately. So like Caleb said, it's going to be a test for our defense and our secondary. Up until last year, we were getting burnt on the edges. So that's going to be a big game for our cornerbacks and our safeties to step up. Because those games can get out of hand. If your defense isn't ready to step up, those are the games that can either become a shootout or just a straight out, just straight up. It's over before it even started. So that'll be a good one, and I think it'll be good playing, or not necessarily good. It'll be a good picture to see how they do playing in the middle of the week. We don't do that. We've never done that. This is our first time being
Yeah.
in a conference where you play in the middle of the week, and so it's a lot different getting ready to play on a Wednesday or a Thursday than it is a Saturday. So I think that'll be a really good test for them too. Of hey,
Yeah.
I can't remember if that's a Wednesday or a Thursday night game. I think it's Wednesday night game.
Wednesday.
Where it's like, hey, it's Wednesday night. Are we ready to turn it on whenever we would usually? This would just be a practice day. So I think that'll be a really good test for us coming in on a Wednesday night on the road against another stout team like Middle Tennessee. Man, looking at our road games, we just really did not catch a break at all. But yeah, that'll be another good test on the road hey, are y'all ready to step up and do what we got to do?
All right. So then we come back almost a week later, and we've got Liberty at home. Now, my rough skim over this game as well. Can Jacksonville State be in midseason form at this point? Can we see Jacksonville State that puts up a lot of points and holds the offense, the other team's offense, to a low, like you've really got to just wear us down style of play? And I think this could be probably one of the highest scoring games of the season.
Yeah. Yeah. This could easily turn into a knockdown,
For
drag down
sure.
shootout because both teams have pretty solid defenses, but the offenses are really what shine on both us. Well, at least we hope by that point for our offense to be shining, and usually Liberty's offense is just lights out. So it's definitely one of those games where it could easily just we could be looking at a 45 to 42 type game where the offenses are scoring in 4 or 5 plays, and it's a 3-minute drive or a 2.5-minute drive. That's one of those games, like you said, where the defense. That's one of those where it probably will come down to what defense can make the last stop. Because both offenses should be rocking and rolling and be very capable of lighting up the scoreboard by then.
Yeah, and Liberty, they lose Hugh Freeze to Auburn, and instead of downgrading at coaching, they went and got Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina. So now they're running that spread triple option offense that's so hard to stop. Really, really impressed. Look, Liberty may win the conference this year. It's either. I mean, they're a really good team. They've got a ton of talent. I know they don't have Malik Willis anymore, but they've got some good quarterbacks on the roster who can still make plays. So I'm looking forward to that game. Like Jaylen said, kind of like both you said, that can be one of the highest scoring games we play all year. I hope it is. That's my style of game. I prefer shootouts. So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's obvious that Liberty should have won the conference a few years ago when they played Coastal in the Cure Bowl. Because, I mean, they beat Coastal in the Cure Bowl. So it's obvious they should have won the conference that year. Speaking really quick on the Jamie Chadwell move from Coastal to Liberty, I heard a lot of chatter of why. Why did he make this move? This move doesn't make any sense. Because to a lot of people, this was a lateral move. So I almost wonder if something's happening at Liberty that we don't know yet. That could be the cause as to why the move was made. I mean, the expectations would be the same, I would assume. His style, I would assume, could probably easily translate. Yeah, I kind of agreed with the people as well. Unless I were to take a deeper look into the move and why the move was made, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know.
My only guess is, oh, sorry, Jaylen, you take it.
Yeah. I don't know. I heard a lot of the same chatter whenever he was moving. People were like, it kind of, like you said, it seems like a very lateral move. It doesn't seem like he's going up. He's definitely not going down, but it doesn't seem like he's going up that much. The only thing I could think of is maybe he feels like Liberty is a better springboard than Coastal. Because I feel like overall in the college football world, Liberty tends to get more respect than Coastal. So maybe he thinks that's more of a springboard, doing it at Liberty. But I really don't know.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of strange.
My only guess, Liberty is I was going to say Liberty's a really well-funded university. That's the only thing. Coastal, it's not that Coastal's a poor university. I mean, if you're a major university in the United States, you're going to have a lot of money. But Liberty's very, very well-funded. I mean, you look at the names they've had. Obviously, Hugh Freeze, big coaching name. He beaten Alabama multiple times. Just went to Auburn. Their athletic director was Baylor's athletic director back in the day. So like they've got guys who've been there, at the Power Five level. I think it's more the matter of now that Liberty has that money and is going into a conference, they're not an independent team anymore. So it's a lot more of a job that looks good to a young coach like that. Yeah. That's my only guess. So.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point with the money piece. And I know we're kind of getting off track, but you do make a good point with the money piece because, if he's able to, even though it's a lateral move in the sense of size of the school or the conference that they're in, if one school is able to pay you more than the other school, then I could see that as a benefit.
Yeah.
So if I can read, on October 17th, which is a Tuesday, a week following the Liberty game, you have Western Kentucky at home.
Yep. You know what? It feels like it's wash, rinse, and repeat. It's another explosive offense. Air raid, throw the ball all over the field. I think Western Kentucky was. I can't remember if they won the conference last year, but they definitely led the conference in yards per game. And I, being an Auburn fan, I saw them firsthand, and they gave Auburn fits at home. In Jordan-Hare, there's a really good football team. It's home. I think it might be you combine returning talent, returning staff, the hype around the program. I think this could be the toughest home game of the year for me.
Yeah. I think what also makes it a really tough home game is not only is it a very high-flying team, I mean, one of the biggest things by this point in the season is just how well can we recover and rehab and be ready for the next week? Because, I mean, that's after we have Coastal, Eastern, Sam Houston, Middle Tennessee State, Liberty. And so it's like, how well can we adjust to playing all of these juggernauts like week after week and just be ready to shake it off and go again the next week? Because we just did not see this level of talent and this level of these levels of teams in the ASUN and definitely not in the OVC. Which again, we have a new head coach. This will be a second year, and it's a different staff. So it'll be great to see how they handle it and how the team handles it. And I think this will be our first true picture of, like, once we get to this point in the season, it's like it'll be a good picture for our fans to see, like, just how well Rich Rod can handle this, which I have all the faith in the world in him. I think through that point in the season, we can easily make it through up to that Western Kentucky game with 2 losses. I could see us maybe having a miracle season and getting there with 1 loss, or who knows, maybe even undefeated. Don't want to get people's hopes up. But, I mean, we could easily be at a point in that season where it's like we're rocking and rolling and it's just test after test and kind of proving the doubters wrong, and kind of that's another one of those games where we prove that we belong. I hope the fans show up. It's a Tuesday night. Hopefully the students, they won't be anywhere. I hope the students show up. Maybe some of the fans that have kids might not stay for the whole game, but that and Liberty, I'm hoping, even though they're midweek games, that the fans show up and go crazy, and I think that'll help. That always helps. But yeah, Western will be a pretty good benchmark, because it's just past the halfway point of the season, and we'll be able to look at our record and see. And record's not everything, especially since we don't have we can't go to a bowl game, but we'll be able to look back and see our performances and see just how well we're performing and stacking up with these guys.
Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, whoops. Go ahead. Oh, wait. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I was just agreeing with Jaylen.
Well, I forgot he went first. My bad. Um, so the next week, 8 days later, 8 days. To close out October, October 25th, Jackson State takes on FIU. The last weekday game of the season and the last game in October.
Yeah.
Yeah. We beaten FIU, I think, 3 years ago, 2020. We beat FIU in COVID year at their place. Um, so we went on a stretch where we had 2 straight years of beating FBS teams. We were doing look. They're in their first year with a new coach. By that point, we're going to have a little over a week to recover from that Western Kentucky game. I really am looking at that game as a game to springboard us into the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm definitely predicting a win. Like Caleb said, they have a new coach. Don't really know what to look for out of them. But obviously, by that point in the season, we will have seen a couple of their games and we'll know what to look out for. But after the gauntlet, I feel like that's a nice little palate cleanser and just a way for us to kind of recoup, recover, and end the season on a high note. Kind of just push to the end and try and really just cement what we want people to see and what we want people to know about us.
All right. And then we have South Carolina, which Jaylen did touch on. So, what do you got for us, Caleb?
Caleb, he doesn't think we can win.
I don't know. In my defense, it depends on what
I would
Spencer.
Agree, but after 4,
it depends on what.
If we get Tennessee, Spencer Rattler, we may want to. Yeah, if the Tennessee Spencer Rattler or like COVID year Oklahoma Spencer Rattler shows up, we may be in trouble. But if that last year at Oklahoma Spencer Rattler shows up, we may have a chance. It's funny though, they have a new offensive coordinator, and South Carolina fans were so happy to see their old OC go to Nebraska that they got even more upset at the new guy they hired. So that could help. They're not a big fan of the new offensive coordinator.
Oh my gosh!
Look, South Carolina's not a bad team. I mean, they beat Tennessee pretty handily last year. I think they won their last 5 games of the year. They beat Clemson. They beat Clemson for the first time in forever. I think the last time they beat Clemson was either 2013 or 2014. So this is a team that has a lot of momentum. But like Jaylen said about the entire year, we're playing with house money, so we might as well go give them the best fight we got. And if we win, hey, that's a nice paycheck that we're bringing home too. So.
Battle of the Gamecocks, baby.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm planning to go to that one, so I know this.
That would be a nice one to go.
It will be a good old fashioned cockfight. Sure.
Yeah, we got to prove that we are the real Gamecocks.
So
yeah.
As we come down to the last 2 weeks of the season, we got Louisiana Tech at home on November 18th.
Yep. Here's my honest opinion on Louisiana Tech. They've actually been a solid team for a few years now. Lou Holtz's son used to be the coach there, Skip, and they had a solid squad. But now their head coach. Y'all remember when TCU was really good and was going off against Baylor?
Yeah.
Louisiana Tech's head coach is now TCU's offensive coordinator for that. So that's Sonny Cumbie. So they're running, that high-paced air raid, getting the ball out in space. They weren't a great team last year, but My understanding of Sonny Cumbies, he's a good head coach. Players love him. So I'm going to be looking for us to win that one at home. But 10 games in, you're going to kind of know what Louisiana Tech looks like. You're going to know what we look like. So it'll be more just who shows up that day.
Yeah, I think one of the overarching themes is we've hit on a lot of these offenses is high-powered, high-flying, high-scoring. So obviously by that point, we'll know, can our defense hold up? Can our defense
Yep.
stand the test with these offenses?
Yeah.
And we'll know if they're even in that form, if they're, putting up 30 to 50 points a game. So like Caleb said, it's just one of those where by that point in the season, we'll know if we can hold up with them. We'll know if our guys are ready to show up and do what needs to be done. It's a home game. Love it. We're back to our Saturdays. We're back to our Saturdays. So our fans should show up. By then, the weather should be pretty. Oh, we'll definitely have a big crowd. That's the Southerners reunion game. So we always have – oh, yeah, and Senior Day. Yeah, we'll have a huge crowd. So our team will definitely be able to take advantage of that. Even if – I think we'll have pretty decent crowds all season, but that will definitely be our biggest home crowd of the year. And I think it'll be a great game. Especially like you said with Senior Day going on, it'll be a good day. And the last home game of the season, the guys are going to want to go out on a high note. They're going to want to leave the fans happy and looking forward to next year. So I feel like no matter how the rest of the season goes, I see us leaving with a win that night. Just to kind of, like I said, tie the bow on the end of the home stretch of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to close us out schedule-wise, New Mexico State at New Mexico State on Saturday, November 25th. Same day as the game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a journey
down here,
right there.
Me and Jaylen being Auburn and Alabama fans, this same day as the Iron Bowl.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that game right there is a journey.
I'll tell you what, though, we'll talk about you. For sure. I didn't realize it. Jerry Kill is New Mexico State's head coach. I didn't realize he was back in the coaching game after all those health problems, but he's the head coach at New Mexico State. I think they won 6-7 games last year. So another good team. Just gotta travel and play your best. I don't know much about them though, to be honest. I haven't been able to find a lot of film on them.
I think in general, just looking back at the entirety of our schedule, we don't have many what people would call cupcake games on this schedule, at least not for our talent level. The only one I would maybe consider a cupcake is at ETSU. But the rest of the games, we just have to show up. We have to take care of business. These are teams that have won 7-8 games. These are bowl game teams. Some of them have won the conference lately or have been right up there fighting for the conference lately. So this is just a schedule where there is no off week. I mean, there shouldn't be an off week anyway, but there really is no off week with this schedule. We have to show up. We got to take care of business. We got to step off the bus at 110%, ready to go, give it our all. From the second the ball was kicked until the clock hits 000.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. I can't remember. Did you give your thoughts, Caleb?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I don't know much. I don't know much about besides who their head coach is, to be honest.
So I don't know. As we kind of go over the schedule here, I if it'll show up. This is kind of where I sit with this team. I mean, like you said, house money. That's why I think the ceiling is probably 7-5, but it's also the floor 4-8.
I agree with the floor. The ceiling, though, I would go 8-4. The in that scenario, the 4 losses, I would see us losing to South Carolina. I could see us losing to Coastal Carolina. And then same Houston and Liberty are the other 2 that I could really see. Obviously, in a perfect world, the ceiling is 12-0. But yeah, the floor I agree with. I don't see a reason why we should walk away with less than 4 wins. But I definitely see 8 wins. I think we should at least hit to where if we were bowl eligible, we would be bowling this season. As far as personal expectations, I think 6 wins or more. But in general, like I said, since we can't go bowling and it's our first year, my biggest thing is even in those losses, I don't want them to be like we never had a chance. I want them to all be like that was a very hard-fought game. That was a classic. That was an iconic game. That just the way the cookie crumbled, we didn't walk out of there with the win, even though we fought our hardest. For me, especially first year being CUSA and FBS, that's the biggest thing. I just want, if I know some people say there's no such thing as a quality loss, but I want our losses to be quality losses. Something you can at least say like, hey, we gave it our all and we didn't just give up and it was a shootout.
Yeah, I mean, I could see 8-4. I hesitate to go 8-4 because I guess I'm on the more realistic side because that South Carolina game. If we get Tennessee, Spencer Rattler, it's probably 7-5. I can easily see you guys going in there with 4 losses, and if the wrong Spencer Rattler, so to speak, shows up, then I mean, yeah, it's done and over, and that's a W. But I think there's just too much between not really knowing this team outside of one game from a few years ago, and the questions with Spencer Rattler. It's just like I said, I can see 8-4, and if you guys do win the game, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're right there in the same ballpark. Like I understand 7-5. I mean, I'm not gonna say you're wrong. Like we're right there in the same ballpark. It's not like I'm sitting here saying we're gonna go 10-2 or 11-1. I'm just kind of banking on some of those closer games that we just kind of, with a hope and a prayer, slip by. But yeah, I'm not trying to be unrealistic. I just want us to, biggest thing, go in, have a solid season, build off of what we started last year, with this being Rich Rod's second season, and just kind of set that foundation for who we are as an FBS team and a building block for next year and the years to come, so that when we are bowl eligible, we can actually go out there and put on a great product and, hopefully by then already have sort of somewhat of a national footprint among the group of 5 schools, but actually get in the bowl game and, show up and show people who we are once we get on those big nationally televised games.
Oh yeah, for sure. So now that we've gone through everything, you guys have any final words, close us out, and where people can find you?
Biggest thing is just don't doubt us. Don't Don't second guess us. We've proven in the past that when people doubt us, we will show up and we will punch you in the mouth and we will make you regret it. Look at for everybody who may not be familiar with Jacksonville State, Jacksonville, Alabama, not Florida. Let me stress that again. We are JSU, but we are not the JSU that Dion was at. Totally different school. But football, keep up with the other athletics. I'm telling you, basketball, baseball, softball, and even some of our more niche athletics, they are nothing to be slept on, nothing to be messed with. Come to a couple of games. I mean, obviously, CUSA is all over the place, so show up to a game, even if it's middle of the week. And then if you ever get the chance, stop by Jacksonville, Alabama. It's a nice, pretty little town. It's at the end of the Appalachian Mountains, so it's a nice little town, small college town. Yeah, our socials, SSN_Jack State. Caleb, you got anything else?
No, I don't have anything else. No, you covered it.
All right. Well, if that's everything from you guys, I want to thank you guys for coming on for sure. Hopefully it was good enough. Maybe we can do this again for after the season or something.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Thanks for having us. I would love to do a season recap and, kind of go over what we thought would happen and what ended up happening and just kind of wrap up the season and talk about what we were looking for in the off season. And by then I will definitely be keeping up more with recruiting, so we can talk about that a little bit more too and look forward to the 24 season.
Again, I want to thank you guys for coming on. I can't believe we were on here for almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
And for people on here, you know what? Go sub over at SSN Jack State. These guys are awesome. They're posting good stuff all the time. And just keep up with them. Even if you're like me, you don't really know who they are, just pop over there and follow them over there because, they'll keep you up with all the good stuff.
Oh, yeah. We'll make sure you end up knowing who we are.
We'll make sure you know who we are. Even if we got to waterboard you.
Yeah.
Sorry, that may have been a little over the top. Yeah. So, leave your comments down below. Subscribe to the channel. We're pushing towards 150 before the season starts. We're at 131 last I checked. So, we're keeping up the grind as best we can. Subscribe over to Shady Sports Network's YouTube channel. They're almost 800. They want to get to 1,000. We just came on with them, so let's help them out the best we can. Appreciate them bringing me on. And, I hope everybody else has a good night, and see you next time.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.